right, my second question is a little bit more complicated. Our remote stopped working for the coach door. Works on the passenger door and the driver's side door. So I made the assumption that the actuator was dead. So I took the old actuator out, put a new one in. But before I put the new one in, I checked the leads. Okay, and how I checked them was, of course, you got the ground, and then you'd hit the remote, one would be hot. You hit the other remote, the other one would be hot. Okay, I put the new actuator in. I blew a fuse. I actually touched two of them, blew a fuse. I replaced the fuse, hooked it all up, still not working with the new actuator. Now I disconnect it and I check the leads again, and the one is working, the other's not.
Probably it's the wiring loom between the fuse box into the door.
Okay.
If you open the door, there's that rubber boot there
Yeah.
that's got wires through it, and those are notorious for break-in, spray-in.
Okay.
How many do you have to fix?
Okay, now we're talking about side door or driver's side door?
The coach door.
Coach door.
The coach door.
Okay, what year model again?
It's a, well, it's a 2000 on a 2001.
Most likely you've got the spring that comes from the door jamb that goes into the door.
Okay.
Inside that spring there are what, 3 wires? Anyway, the wires that are in there fill that spring, the interior of that spring. My first rig had the spring, and the wires chafed each other and caused a big mess. So when I went back together, I used a smaller gauge wire so the wires would flex in that spring easier. Now, I anchored the spring to the door jamb, so when you open and close the door, that spring would move in and out of the hole in the door.
Which is what it's supposed to do.
It's what it's supposed to do. Otherwise, if they bind, it takes the spring and kinks it like this, resulting in a bent spring that you can't ever straighten out, and bent wires. Now, on the same line, on my first rig, and Dwayne helped me on this way years ago, the door loom on your driver's side door, it's about this big around in that rubber boot. There are 23 wires in that loom, all the way from big, like number 10s, all the way down to like maybe 18s and 20 gauge wires. Those tend to flex and they will chafe, the insulation will break off, and it's a big mess. And of course, if you go to Volkswagen, oh well, the switch is bad. Well, I'm sorry folks, but that's the easiest thing for them to do to get you out of it. And it's an expensive switch. I had to replace and reconnect and resolder 8 of the 23 wires in the wire loom just to get everything back to working. I was very fortunate in that I could open the door about this far and everything worked. As soon as I closed the door, the dash lights would come on, the license plate light would come on, and that was just the only 2 things that I knew of. And of course, the day it happened, Murphy's Law, it's raining like all get out. In order to save my engine battery, in the rain, I went out and disconnected it before we connected it back up and I drove home. So, you have to remove the door panel. In order to get the door panel off, you've got to remove the speaker because there's retainer bolts down there. You have to remove the bolts on the door handle, and it comes off and goes up. It's a long job. It's a box of Band-Aids and a 6-pack before you're going to get it fixed.
Now, on the side door that he's talking about, you mentioned a fuse box. Is there a fuse box back there in the backside?
No. Well,
Or are you
there's
talking about the one under the
fuses
dash?
for the back, but that actuator runs off of the same fuse that's up front.
Got it. So that fuse is fine.
On the coach door, usually it's about that far in front of it. There's a little square panel with a couple screws. That's where those wires connect to. So if you want to really check it, open that up, take the wires loose that go to the door, and then check and make sure your voltages are like they're supposed to be.
Makes sense.
I'm sure you'll find they're there even though they're not at the actuator.
For those of us that have, I say us, those of you that have the 3 little pins instead of the spring, Magnum shooters they call them, they will sometimes get like this, where one of them will recess. The way to straighten that out is you remove the 2 Phillips screws and gently, if you don't want to lose the connection, pull that little assembly out, you will find a very small nylon nut. And you depress the Magnum shooter and with your finger adjust the nut to where all three of them are equal and put it back together.
And you can put the Magnum shooters in the oval.
It ain't easy. I know, again,
It's
box
hard,
of
hard to
Band-Aids,
cut that hole there to
box
make
of
it
or
fit.
six pack.
And if you have the Magnum shooters on a later model, you can get corrosion on them that'll prevent them from working properly. You take a typewriter eraser and
Just a pencil eraser.
Don't-
Any kind of eraser, just
Yeah,
something
don't
coarse.
Don't use steel wool because it'll light up on you. Any kind of a hard eraser will get rid of that corrosion.
Oh, the access.
One of the things I used to do when we close everything up, get ready to go, I'd reach around here with my left elbow, mash the button down, everything locks. Safety.
That's what I do.
Yeah, because somebody could come right in your door.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. I sometimes forget that. It's like you stop
know.
those
That
signs.
makes me nervous.
They could come right in.
But with the Rialta, all you gotta do is go, whereas out here on my rig, I've gotta physically lock my side door. Because my two front doors, the forward portion, it locks itself at about 5 miles an hour or whatever. But I have to remember to lock my coach door.
Yeah, I forget that. And that's scary.
Yeah,
Something
that's what
about-
that left elbow's for.
Something totally unrelated. If you've got an HD or a QD with the Jalousie windows in the back, your gearbox can get worn. So you're cranking and nothing happens to the window and it finally engages. I've got about 3 turns before mine engages. If you get one of this size Acro Press clips, this will hold that worm gear assembly together. And you can actually take these little legs off if you want to. So get a couple of these, put one on each of them. You might want to put 2 on if you have a problem. It'll take most of the slop in that worm gear assembly out, so your windows will work a lot better.
Until the worm gear wears out.
Until the worm gear wears out. But
Where do you put it?
the worm gear is that black box
Round,
about this
yeah.
size and about that thick that the handle cranks in.
Where the knob is.
You'll see the part that's starting to separate.
Oh, if you take it
Inside
apart.
the
You don't
window?
have to take it apart. I mean, you crank on it, the assembly will actually come apart. There's a
Oh,
seam in the middle. And you basically want to span that assembly with at least one of these, and that'll hold all the gears in a better position. I mean, they do wear out. But that's you can get new ones though. That's a standard
Yeah,
part.
it's a standard window part.
But this is a lot cheaper than the mechanism.
Yeah.
so.
Well, related to that, about a year ago, I found out there's a little handle that swings out and you can just pull.
Yeah, it's been hiding in there all these
Yeah.
years.
I was like, whoa.
I want you to shut the door and the window.
Yeah.
It
Did
pops
that.
out.
That's when that gearbox gets loosened.
Okay, that's what it's,
Slop
You go
it.
back there, you tighten it down again, and the next time finally it'll pop again.
okay, and you're talking about using that little doohickey there.
Just paper
Now,
clip.
I don't mean to be an idiot, but you got the little thing that goes around like that.
Yep.
Did you put that thing on this side of that
No.
thing? Or on that
It's
side?
the little box inside there where the little arm sticks out.
Okay,
I think it's a little box
on
about.
this side?
You have to
2 inch
take the
squares.
screen off to get to it, or take from the outside,
Yeah.
go from the outside.
You can do it from the outside if you open the window.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you'll see, if you try to open the window
Uh-huh.
and put strain against that system, you'll see the case start separating.
Okay.
That's what's making the extra
Yeah.
slop in there. You want to take the strain off of it, put it together, and put 1 or maybe 2 of these, depending on how bad it is.
People have replaced that little mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
and it works fine until it does it again.
Yeah.
It starts to separate.
Okay.
It's plastic.
So it wears and gets sloppier over time, and this just kind of holds it more in position.
I have a question about our 97 RD, and it's on the cab. It's a paint question. We got just a little bit of rust on the post on the outside of the cab, on the passenger side, and then on that same side, we've got a little bit of rust along where it joins to the, around the running board. It's just starting, so if you have any advice about how to take care of that, I don't want to get in there and,
Where do you live? Where do you live?
North Carolina, and it's been under.
Near the coast?
No,
Okay.
we don't have a lot of rust. We don't have any rust.
Well, I'm just asking because
Yeah.
if you're anywhere near
We're
salt
not,
air,
and it's never been.
it's gonna be
It's
really
always-
bad.
No, it's always been in eastern Tennessee.
If you're not, then there's stuff, the one I used originally was called Rust X. It came in a gallon jug and it said Rust X right on the bottle.
All right.
And you put that on rust and it stops it where it's
Okay.
at, okay? But you have to have rust. You can't use it on plain bare metal.
No, this is,
So
yeah.
you put it on there, it turns black, and it seals it so that it doesn't progress any. And then you can have it repainted or whatever. Now, if it's bad enough, it'll actually have beaten up the inside, so you can't get to the inside to coat in. So it's gonna keep eating from the inside out.
Thank goodness it's just started, so I guess I can go on the Roga page and see what the color, because I don't wanna repaint. We're not in the market to repaint.
The cab is Volkswagen Arctic White.
Arctic white. And there's several colors of Arctic white.
But it's Volkswagen Arctic White, there's
Volkswagen.
one color. I believe it's
Okay.
908 is their color code.
Okay, thank you.
Got to dream big, or don't dream at all.